Looking for a home that keeps you connected to Silicon Valley without the usual barriers to entry? The Gates in Morgan Hill by City Ventures is a walkable neighborhood near downtown restaurants, outdoor trails, and an easy commute to the Bay Area. It's a small town setting with access to major career hubs. Every home is all electric with buyer-owned solar included. With limited availability, now's the time to take a closer look. Discover your new home at cityventures.com. That's cityventures.com.
Queen Carvania stood haloed by the morning sun. An army hung on her every word.
My champions, I have sold my chariot on Carvana. 'Twas a lovely SUV, an inexplicably queenly offer. They're even coming to the castle to collect it. Tonight, we feast! An offer you can feast on. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike. Back with Sam. How are you doing, Sam?
I'm doing all right, man. How are you?
I'm doing pretty bad. This is a bad week. This is really bad. I'm not happy. I'm upset, and I've been upset for a few days now. And I guess that's going to carry on for a while now. I don't like anything about the last acquisition by the Phoenix Suns. I don't like it from all aspects. So
Huge
I'm
disrespect
doing bad.
to Jamari Bouye there from you. What did Jamari do to you?
Shout out Jamari. He got his contract guaranteed for those who missed it. I'm happy for him. Or not guaranteed. I don't know. We'll see how it
he
goes.
got picked up. It's partially guaranteed until January. It's like the third most important thing that's happened in the last 48 hours. I'm obviously joking around. Okay. Yeah. It's top of mind for everyone, so fuck it. Let's talk about the Miles Bridges trade. We got to do it.
Let me ask you this: are we cursed, you and me?
I don't think so. I don't think we're cursed. I think
because
the fan base...
you were desperate to get rid of Royce O'Neal.
I was.
I personally was so upset with the idea of them running back a bad team.
Yeah,
not a bad team, a mediocre team,
right. Right. So, yeah, I mean, we can start there.
Yeah.
We could start there from the perspective of, before we even say what the trade was, we, for the last month, have been beating this drum of this roster just doesn't make sense. This lineup doesn't make sense. This math doesn't make sense. You know, on draft night.
And they said, what if we make it worse?
Okay, we're going to get there.
What if we make it worse?
We're going to get there, okay? But starting from the point of, we didn't really believe that they were actually going to do nothing this summer.
No,
I would have been pissed if they did.
I mean, I would have been mad, but I thought they were.
Maybe you did.
I'll tell you this. Like, I was upset with the idea of them running it back. Literally, like a few days before the trade, or like the day before, I was like, you know what? They didn't do anything dumb. They didn't send any picks out. They didn't pay too much money to anybody on any of these contracts. They're all reasonable contracts. So they have time, and if it doesn't work, they can make trades at the deadline. They can go into next year like, okay, they're punting a year, kind of. They're not going to be great. But they didn't commit to anything stupid. Therefore, they have a relatively clean slate for what the Suns have been dealt. And I found myself feeling, okay, now I'm okay with that. Like, I don't feel great about it in Devin Booker's prime that they're going to punt a season. But I do think they have options going forward. Yeah. And then the Phoenix Suns, for those who don't know, I can't imagine anyone listening to this podcast without knowing, they traded Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, and a 2033 unprotected first-round pick. I still can't believe that part of this. For Miles Bridges and a 2029 first-round pick and a 2027 second-round pick, both of which are the worst of a whole bunch of trades.
Four
of
teams.
Picks. Yes, Cleveland, Minnesota, Utah, and Charlotte. Of those four teams, three of them, at least, will probably be good. The Suns will get the worst pick of those 4 teams, and then, of course, Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal gone, in comes Miles Bridges, who I think, at best, is a mediocre basketball player. At worst, he's a person who has done heinous things in his life that are going to make it difficult to root for him to play on the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah. Okay, let's get it out of the way, right? Miles Bridges has this history.
June 2022.
Yeah.
3 felony charges.
Yeah.
For abusing the mother of his children.
Yep.
The mother of his children who had physical injuries on her body at the time, concussion, a fracture of the nasal bone, a rib contusion, and a strained neck muscle from strangulation and a torn eardrum. The assault took place in front of the children. Yep. In November of 2022, Bridges pleaded no contest to the felony charges. A no contest plea, of course, for those who don't know, carries the same sentencing weight as a guilty plea, but you just don't admit guilt. He was sentenced to 3 years probation and was suspended for 30 games by the NBA. And then in October of 2023, he allegedly violated a protective order by throwing billiard balls at her car, same person, with the kids in the car.
With the kids in the car, yep.
And that those charges were dropped due to insufficient evidence. But there are 2 instances of potential abuse, one of them which he essentially was sentenced for in the past.
Yeah, so those are the facts. Everyone can deal with those facts in their own way. What I will say is I can't, definitively say Miles Bridges in 2026 is a bad person. I don't know him, But if we've seen any evidence of, remorse and change from him, I'm not sure that's happened. And he certainly has the actions in his history of being a bad person. You have to allow people the opportunity to change. But, I will say what pisses me off a little bit about the reaction to this trade from one side, what I would call kind of the toxic positivity side of the media and of Suns Twitter, people who just want you to go rah-rah about every acquisition that the team makes, is that you have to allow people to be sports fans in their own way. It's an emotional connection that every individual has that's a little bit different for each person to this franchise. And for the Suns, who have, for the past year, talked so much about this concept of rebooting their culture for the past 2 years, really, since Ishbia acquired the team, and talked about the prospect of that they're going to go after high-character young men and really reboot that culture, you have to understand that there's no way to view a trade like this that isn't a betrayal of that theoretical idea, right? And, I'm going to cover the Suns this year. We're both covering the Suns this year. But I will be honest, Mike, I don't know if this has happened to you. I've had people reach out to me privately via DMs on Twitter, Suns fans, diehard Suns fans, who have said, look, man, I like the pod or whatever, but they do a move like this and I'm losing interest. And, I don't know if I will be watching as many games this year. I don't know if I can, go to the arena this year. And, who are you or me or anyone to tell someone that that's a wrong way for them to feel, right?
100%, right.
It's completely an understandable reaction if that is someone's personal reaction to this trade, if they believe that this trade reflects the moral values or the moral fabric of the organization, which in many ways it does.
It absolutely does. It shows at least a willingness to trade for somebody with these with this past. And to be fair to him, you're right. I don't know him as a person. I don't know anything about his life now and what it's like. And frankly, my concern isn't necessarily for him. And so I can't judge him as a person from now on or whatever. But I can look at what the Phoenix Suns are doing as an organization and question that. That is something that I intend to do. And I don't think that what they did here was good, regardless of the merits of it as a trade on its own, which, by the way, are still bad. If you ask me, they're still bad.
There in a sec. We'll get there.
But even beyond that, I look, if you're a Suns fan and you're listening to this, which by the way, thank you. But if you're listening to this and you're saying I don't want to root for this team anymore, I understand. I completely understand where you're coming from. In fact, if you buy a Miles Bridges jersey and I see you in it, I'm going to look at you sideways a little bit too. I can't help that. I'm going to do that. It's okay to acknowledge the humanity of being a sports fan sometimes and not pretend that it doesn't exist. And by the way, I acknowledge that there are moral compromises to being a sports fan in general. There always are. You have to have some sort of guiding light for yourself in whatever you do. And I think there can be some hypocrisy in still continuing to be a fan no matter what you do in any sport. That exists I'm watching the World Cup right now. I understand FIFA and the problems with FIFA a little bit and sports washing and soccer in general, but I'm still going to watch the World Cup. So I understand that for everyone, they have their own moral guiding light, and you need to do whatever you need to do to feel okay with yourself and protect your own mental health when it comes to this kind of thing. For us, like I'll just say from my perspective, we have an agreement with the people that listen to this podcast, with the people that pay us, on our Patreon. We're going to cover the team. That is what we do. We're going to find our best ways to do that. I don't fully know what that's going to look like all the time, but I know I like to talk about basketball, and I plan on talking about basketball this season like I always do. But it is just one of those situations where I don't feel great about it right now. Like right now, I feel not good about it. And that's due to what Matt Ishbia and Brian Gregory and Bartlestein and whoever else works for the Suns, that's due to the decisions that they made in order to do this. And we'll even go into the basketball side of this. Like I said, I don't feel great about that either.
Yeah, I think we should go there now to the basketball side of this. It's funny because I feel like we've made this joke about trading for Miles Bridges for years now, and unfortunately, a large part of that is because of the Michigan State connection. I'll say two things about it. I guess this isn't quite going into the basketball yet, but just two more things on kind of what I don't understand about the current front office and some of the moves they're making. Not that they've all been bad moves, but, we'll talk about some positive things, I think, today. But, I don't get the Michigan State thing. I just don't. Because I think you're fooling yourself if it wasn't at least part of the reason there was interest. And I don't understand what it is about an alma mater that just makes people feel a loyalty to others. If it's someone like Jordan Ott in a hiring process and it gives him one step up over other candidates, then okay, whatever, I guess. But time and time again, this undying loyalty to the state of Michigan, I just can't wrap my head around it. I can't sympathize with it because, if I was in a decision-making role... If I was in a decision-making role, I just don't get it. Really, where the hell does that come from? And the other part of that is now this weird loyalty that they have to Clutch as an agency, where suddenly over half of the Suns roster are Rich Paul clients.
Not quite over half, but yes.
7. Okay, half of them. 7 out of 14, right? A lot of those guys on rookie contracts, but Miles Bridges is another one that they've added to the table. And I don't know, allowing one agency to wield this much power over over your roster feels a little bit dangerous too. And maybe it's just a coincidence, but it doesn't feel all that coincidental anymore with the number of Clutch guys that they're getting.
Looking for a home that keeps you connected to Silicon Valley without the usual barriers to entry? The Gates in Morgan Hill by City Ventures is a walkable neighborhood near downtown restaurants, outdoor trails, and an easy commute to the Bay Area. It's a small town setting with access to major career hubs. Every home is all electric with buyer-owned solar included. With limited availability, now's the time to take a closer look. Discover your new home at cityventures.com. That's cityventures.com.
Mom, can you tell me a story?
Sure. Once upon a time, a mom needed a new car.
Was she brave?
She was tired, mostly. But she went to Carvana.com and found a great car at a great price. No secret treasure map required.
Did you have to fight a dragon?
Nope. She bought it 100% online. From her bed, actually.
Was it scary?
Honey, it was as unscary as car buying could be.
Did the car have a sunroof?
It did, actually.
Okay, good story.
Car buying you'll want to tell stories about. Buy your car today on
Carvana.
Delivery fees may apply.
You've heard us talk about Alchemy Roast before, but if you still haven't tried them, consider this your reminder. One of the things I appreciate about Alchemy is that they're focused on the coffee itself. They source quality beans, roast in small batches, and pay attention to the details that make a difference in the cup. Whether you're making pour over, espresso, or just a standard drip coffee at home, it's the kind of coffee that makes you look forward to your morning routine. And if you're someone who drinks coffee every day, upgrading what you're brewing is one of the simplest changes you can make. And you've been hearing these ads thinking, I'll check it out later. Well, now is a good time. Head to alchemyroaster.com and use the promo code TIMELINE to get 10% off your order. That's alchemyroaster.com, promo code TIMELINE today to support them, a local Phoenix business, and to support us here on this podcast.
Looking for a home that keeps you connected to Silicon Valley without the usual barriers to entry? The Gates in Morgan Hill by City Ventures is a walkable neighborhood near downtown restaurants, outdoor trails, and an easy commute to the Bay Area. It's a small town setting with access to major career hubs. Every home is all electric with buyer-owned solar included. With limited availability, now's the time to take a closer look. Discover your new home at cityventures.com. That's cityventures.com.
Miles had no trade value. That's been reported. The Suns gave up an unprotected pick to put him on the roster now. That's an absurd decision. And by the way, if you think as I understand it, and I've done the work to ask people who know what they're talking about here, the Suns had 2 first-round picks that they could trade. Look up the Stepien rule if you need to understand it a little bit. The Suns had 2 first-round picks that they were able to trade before this trade. They traded 2033. They got a 2027. They have 2 first-round picks they can trade now.
They traded a 2033. They got it a 2029.
Exactly. 2029. Yeah. They did not change the amount of picks that they can trade in a star trade. They changed the year. And they changed, frankly, the value. They got a worse
long-term to short-term, should they want to use a short-term pick in a trade. But it was still 2 first-round picks before that they could have sent out, and now it's 2 first-round picks, and one of them is going to be in the 20s. You are correct.
Yes.
The pick swap was bad, but it's just so far from being I haven't even really wrapped my head around that, I think, either, because
that's the part that I just, from a basketball perspective, is the most absurd part of all of this.
Okay. Let's talk about Miles Bridges, the player on the basketball court, because we got to get there.
And by the way, Grayson Allen, 16 points per game, 57% true shooting. Miles Bridges, 17 points per game on 57% true shooting.
Shout out to Grayson Allen, by the way. 3 really up and down seasons in Phoenix, but I think he proved a lot to redefine himself as a player.
A true victim of Bud, more than anyone.
A true victim of Mike Budenholzer and Kevin Durant and legal cannabis in the state of Arizona. So shout out to Grayson Allen. Royce O'Neal, I think... Royce, I think, had some good moments too in Phoenix, but I was much lower on him, as you know, and was sort of begging for him to be sent out in some sort of move. So I can't say I'm too beaten up over that.
Suns fans are going to need that legal cannabis this year, Sam. Leave it alone.
Miles Bridges is. I want to give the Suns a small ounce of credit, not about Miles Bridges, but about we spoke on this idea that they needed to go after a distressed asset. Okay, I spoke about this a few weeks ago. I said they should be taking swings. They don't have assets, so what they should do is be taking swings on a distressed asset. At the time, what I interpreted that to mean was a player who is either not very healthy or a player who makes too much money in the form of Zion Williamson or Ja Morant. Those were just a couple of names I brought up. Ja Morant was moved today in a very interesting move to the Portland Trailblazers. We could talk about that in a little bit as well. What I neglected to bring up is that there is a third type of distressed asset, and I think Miles Bridges fits that bill. Miles Bridges is a very weird fit on the basketball court for a lot of reasons. He has a lot of weaknesses, but it is a lot of the off-court stuff that lowered his trade value. If it wasn't for that stuff, you have to believe that a guy who's proven with an ability to get 20 points per game in the past, even if it is a mediocre efficiency 20 points per game, that he still would have had more trade value than he did. So I guess in some small sense, the Suns were trying to hop on that opportunity, right? They saw a guy who can score 20 points per game. The rest of the basketball fit is kind of confusing here. And I struggle to wrap my head around that too for a bunch of reasons. Do you want to talk about Miles Bridges on offense first, or do you want to talk about him on kind of defense?
I'm good with starting wherever you want to start.
Okay, so offense, 17 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, 3.2 assists, 3.2 assists to 1.4 turnovers last season for the Hornets. Had, I would say, mildly the best playmaking season of his career, in the sense that he didn't take 18 to 20 shots a game to get 3 assists. He took 13 shots a game to get 3 assists. I still think there are massive playmaking issues for the Suns' purported starting five that we can get to in a second.
He's not a playmaker.
He's a better, here's what I would say. He is a better playmaker than Dylan Brooks and Jalen Green, and that says very little about him being a good playmaker. He is still a
You can
shoot-first
accidentally
player.
be better than those guys.
I actually pulled up the stats because I was curious. You know, I think the real reason the Suns did this, that they will say, is, first of all, we know Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal were too small. Miles Bridges is a little bigger.
There's an attempt to balance the roster size-wise by making
There's an
this
attempt to balance the roster size-wise with a guy who technically is a power forward. And also, if you look at their other moves, you know, re-signing or picking up the option on Jamari Bouye today, getting Koa Pete in the draft, I think there's a real emphasis on the Suns' part in recognizing that they need to get to the rim way more than they do. And there is a belief that Miles Bridges can be a guy who can drive and just is far more athletic. We can say this, far more athletic than Grayson Allen or Royce O'Neal, will touch the paint more often than Grayson Allen even. I know there was a whole argument in our Discord about this very thing today, about drives per game and yada yada. I read it. He just will touch the paint more than Grayson Allen. If you want to argue about efficiency, that's fine. But he will.
I mean,
drive
part of it is
more
that he's
often.
not as good of a shooter, by like significantly worse shooter. So that's kind of what he needs to do. And he is more of a mid-range shooter, by the way. That's like where he prefers to shoot.
But the idea was they were going to get a guy who could drive. And they have a guy in Jalen Green who can drive. Okay. By the way, on the passing thing, Dylan Brooks, I just had to look this up. Dylan Brooks passed out on 13% of his drives last season. Did you know that? That is, I don't know if I can really contextualize that for you. Like, I feel like an average player is somewhere from 30 to 40%. They pass out on their drives according to NBA.com/stats. 50% would be like a pass-first point guard, you know, Tyus Jones type, who's a little bit
Colin
afraid
Gillespie.
to... Yeah, Colin Gillespie. Someone who's afraid to attack the rim. 13% is like, holy fuck, dude, pass the fucking ball. Like, Dylan Brooks was in the bottom 5 percentile of the league. Miles Bridges is at 24%, so still bad. Still not a guy, like, he's going to put his head down, he's going to drive to the rim. But I do think there's a real worry that you've got 4 guys at point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, who are all sort of veterans in the prime of their career now, who are all going to be soaking up 30-plus minutes. And I know Devin Booker likes to pass, so he's going to be passing to the other 3 guys. Those other 3 guys, I'm really worried about their ability, and Jordan Knott's ability, frankly, to kind of get them to buy in and move the ball around, because I think there's a real chance that it's a clunky fit offensively. On the three-point shooting end, got to note the fact that Miles Bridges, 33% last year, just 34% for his career. Obviously a big step down in terms of his ability as a three-point shooter compared to Royce O'Neal or Grayson Allen, obviously. And yeah, the net rating numbers aren't great. The defensive numbers aren't great. The rebounding
Defense
numbers
gets
aren't great.
significantly worse when he played in Charlotte.
We could talk about all sorts of stuff, but let's just focus on the offense right now, right? So how do you envision Miles Bridges looking on offense next to the other players he's supposed to start with?
The Suns' projected starting lineup as it stands shot an average of 33% from 3 last season. There's not a single positive three-point shooter in the entire lineup. If you assume that it's going to be Devin Booker, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, Miles Bridges, and a center. We're not even going to count a center.
It's going to be Mark Williams.
It's going to be Mark. Well,
we'll talk about Mark Williams in a little while.
You can say it's going to be Mark Williams, but with the lack of playmaking on this team, it might be Oso Ighodaro by December. Because there's just such a small amount of playmaking on this team right now. The team can change. And by the way, if you ask me, it needs to change. Dramatically needs to change in order for any of the moves that they've made recently to work. Because one of the things that this team relied on more than anything is the willingness for Royce O'Neal and Grayson Allen to shoot from far, and to shoot a lot. And you take away their ability to shoot in that way, you're taking away one of the most important aspects of this offense last season. So looking at it now, there's going to be less spacing. There's just not great three-point shooting in that starting lineup. There's going to be less spacing, and they brought someone that's supposed to slash.
You're still playing 4 out and not 5 out, right?
Exactly.
Maybe you could argue that there would be more spacing if you had a center who consistently shot
There always
threes.
would be. Yeah.
We don't currently have that. You know, I would anticipate that Malawach is going to be, you know, really working on that in the summer. And I mentioned Rasheer Fleming on Twitter today, too, because I still think Rasheer absolutely has the size to play small ball 5 in spurts. But it is absolutely concerning the fact that the two best centers on the Suns are still Mark Williams and Oso Ighodaro. Neither of them shoots threes, which means if you have these 4 other guys who are all 33, 34% three-point shooters, I don't know why any reasonable defense wouldn't just pack the paint on this team.
You
right
pack
now.
the paint, and you just run out to shooters when they catch it and just hope a slight contest will make them miss, because by the stats, it will make them miss.
And by packing the paint, first of all, you're taking guys, like we just said, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and Miles Bridges, who don't pass out a whole lot anyway. So you're taking extra defenders, putting them at the rim. They're probably, you know, they're big, strong guys like Dylan Brooks, Miles Bridges. They have weight on them to throw their body into you maybe a little bit. But they're not the most efficient finishers at the rim. They're probably not going to pass out anyway. And if they do pass out,
there's no advanced reads, that's for sure.
If they do pass out, then those are mediocre shooters on the perimeter, right? So let me just finish that thought. The big concern for me is that, and this is before we even get into defense, it's hard for me to envision. I feel like the Suns took away a lot of their grit and defensive identity in this move, which is okay if you sacrifice it for being like a top-level offense. I don't see a top-level offense here. I think there's a real formula.
I don't see a good offense here.
I think they were the 16th best offense last year, and I think they're basically in line for more mediocrity offensively.
No, they're just... And by the way, Suns fans listening, I'm not your therapist. If you're here you're getting mad that I'm going to be negative here, just skip this episode. That's my advice. Just skip it. Turn it off now. They are going to be worse on offense, this team, because they do not have playmaking and they do not have shooting. Now they will change hopefully before the season starts.
Can I throw a caveat in there?
But let me just say this.
They're going to be worse.
Hold on. Devin Booker is going to be doubled on every single possession, and teams are going to let Dylan Brooks, Jalen Green, and Miles Bridges shoot whatever shot they want. And why wouldn't they? Force it out of his hands. There's no creation for others by any of those guys. They can't do any advanced creation. Now, they struggled with this already. It's worse now to me because you don't have the spacing that Grayson and Royce provide within that. You can't help off of Grayson and Royce without being punished.
I still think Miles is going to be a better outlet for Booker than either of those two guys who you just mentioned.
I do not think that. Look, will he potentially score more points? Maybe.
I think if
but
Booker
does that
is
have
trapped,
the same positive level?
If Booker is trapped at the top of the key and Miles is catching in the short roll and then he's going to attack a 2-on-1, he's going to do a better job of it than the guys who are sent out in the trade.
Oh, yeah, because those guys, that's not their job.
Enough to the point of justifying the trade, I don't know. But, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
he'll
if
do
you
better at that.
Because he's more of an actual power forward sides person, yes, but that's not what they were there to do. If you have them on the floor, they're one pass away, somebody else is screening, and that has a more positive effect on the offense. If they find other shooters that can do that, maybe they'll find a way to make it work, but as it currently stands, I think the offense has gotten significantly worse, and they are surrounding Devin Booker with players, if you ask me, that do not maximize what he's capable of doing. What has Devin Booker been good at his entire career? Finding ways to create three-point shots for others. Why are they surrounding him with players who can't shoot? And beyond that, he needs help with playmaking. They didn't help that yet. Maybe they will. I keep saying it. You know, people want to hear that. Maybe they will find a way to help with that. But as it stands right now, I think this team got worse at passing. I think it got worse at defense. We'll talk about his defense. I think it got worse at shooting. And I don't think it improved the rebounding. I think, he's not a good rebounder.
He's not a better rebounder than... I don't know. he averaged 1.1 offensive rebounds per 36, 6.8 overall per 36. I mean, I guess maybe he's a slightly better rebounder than Royce or Grayson, but he's not the type of rebounder you would expect to be acquiring for someone who's listed at 6'7", 230. And I think I posted this online too, that he was 24th percentile in offensive rebounding percentage, and 11th percentile in, here's the defensive part, deflections. Not really a guy who gets his hand on a lot of balls, not a weak side rim protector, which is important because Mark Williams is already not a rim protector. So, Miles to not be a weak side rim protector doesn't really help you in that area either. I just feel like so much, say what we will about the Suns offense. You said they're going to be worse next year. Let's say they're the same. Just take it for granted for a second. Let's say they are the same. Their path to improving would probably be through being a great defensive team, because they were 10th in defense last year. And I just don't see, now that you've acquired another guy who's kind of iffy on defense, and I've got plenty of net rating stats from his time in Charlotte to prove it, if you're playing 30-plus minutes of Bridges and 30-plus minutes of Jalen Green, who we know doesn't really hustle and get deflections and do this stuff, and Mark Williams is a bad rim protector, and he's the starting center. What's the path to being a top 10 defense again? I just don't see that either. All the best defenders on the team are now on the bench.
Yeah, and
they're all on the bench.
They won't be for long. This is why I think I just would not be surprised if I look at this roster as it currently stands. I don't want to hear it. I know it can change. We're staring down the barrel of 35 minutes a game from Oso Ighodaro. Because they need it. They need his defense. They need his deflections. They need his playmaking, because they don't have anyone that can pass. And I like Oso. I think he was fun last year. I'm looking at this team now and I'm like, how do we get minutes for Kaman Malowich? They just signed, we're going to talk about him, Mark Williams. And this is just not the way to do it. They did not, this move to me on paper, there is the concept of a talent upgrade. Miles Bridges is not what he used to be. Maybe he has a jump in his scoring. Maybe he has a jump in his playmaking. Maybe he locks in defensively. Then the real idea of the culture that Phoenix is creating will be put to the test there. Maybe he does, and this could all be wrong. But if he trends the way he was trending previously, it's trending the wrong direction. His defense has gotten worse. His defense has slipped. His offense has gotten worse. His offense has slipped. And I just don't see a world where I would have rather kept Royce O'Neal and Grayson Allen and played it out. Just see what happens later. Maybe there's some more value later in the season. And that's just from a basketball perspective, by the way.
Since Brian Gregory only trades with the Charlotte Hornets anyway, I proposed a Grayson Allen for Grant Williams swap a couple weeks ago that you hated. And to be fair, most people in the Discord hated. But I would have liked that a lot better, because I think Grant Williams is a big, strong guy who has a history of playing defense and rebounding. And offensively, I don't know. But I would have felt better about them kind of sticking with the identity that they had last year. Now they just feel so... And I will say, I understand that they're in a difficult position, and it's not reasonable to expect them to be good at everything. I'm not expecting them to be good at everything. But I worry that now they aren't good at anything again, right? Like I don't think their offense is going to be good enough, and now I don't think their defense is good either, because I think they just made it worse in this trade, and I'm kind of worried about them just being mediocre at everything. And I understand if maybe the youth isn't ready to just step in and play 30 minutes like Rasheer Fleming and all them, but I'm also worried that now you're really, putting big obstacles in the way of those guys' development. Like it's going to be hard for some of those guys to step out onto the court this year and play significant minutes. So all sorts of reasons for me to be down on this trade. I will say I want to talk about Ja Morant real quick, because we mentioned Ja Morant a few weeks ago. Ja Morant was traded today from the Memphis Grizzlies to the Portland Trailblazers for Jeremy Grant and who is it? Chris Murray, I think. Am I right on that one?
Yeah, I think that's right.
I think it was Chris Murray. Mm-hmm. You think the Suns could have beat that offer, and would you have wanted to?
I mean,
in lieu of doing this trade?
Based on what we know about the Suns, they are addicted to sending first-round picks out in trades, so they would have definitely gotten something.
Do you think Jalen, forget the picks for a second, do you think Jalen Green and Royce O'Neal is better than Jeremy Grant and Chris Murray?
I mean, there's more upside. Jeremy Grant is a finished product. Chris Murray's, I think,
Chris Murray's young.
He doesn't have like the
He
high
probably
ceiling.
sucks.
There is conceptually this idea that you could talk yourself into with Jalen Green of a higher ceiling, and so
If you
from that
could
perspective,
have, if you could have done that, and then you would have had, you would have traded for Ja. He's the starting point guard. Booker's the shooting guard. You keep Grayson Allen. He's the sixth man. And then you do a 2-for-1 trade just like they did, right? So you free up a roster spot that you can use on a free agent signing. We'll talk about free agency in a little while. Would you have preferred that over what they did do? I'm just curious.
Yeah, probably. I do.
For
find
me, it's a definite yes.
People
but-
have been comparing the idea of trading for Ja Morant to the idea of trading for Miles Bridges, and I think those are so dramatically different on and off the court. Like Ja Morant has reached levels that Miles Bridges has never reached, and his playmaking, in theory, is a really good fit next to Devin Booker. His defense is awful too, so you can count that.
His defense is awful.
But like the off the court stuff with Ja Morant are nothing like this, like what it is with Miles Bridges. So I think
with Ja, it's like his defense is absolutely awful, but the offensive ceiling really provides an outlet next to Booker, like maybe he's never had. I don't know, in terms of a driving point guard, a slashing point guard next to him since like Eric Bledsoe, I guess, or something.
Yeah.
And I think the potential heights of that pairing, I can just see it on offense a lot more clearly than I can see it with Booker and Bridges.
And by the way, I would have done that after this Miles Bridges trade too. I almost feel like it makes more sense. There's such a massive lack of playmaking on this team in a way that puts so much pressure on what Devin Booker has to do for this team to even be kind of good, that it's really unfortunate that they haven't found a way to address that. I think they're aware of it, and maybe they find a way to address it. I think Drew Holiday is available for trade right now. I've been trying to trade for Drew Holiday for this entire podcast, I think. So I obviously would still do that. I don't know
why Portland would do it necessarily, but I will say, a theoretical Jalen Green for Drew Holiday swap. I know Holiday doesn't have the same high scoring level upside, but like Bridges can score, Dylan Brooks can score, and you just need another guy in there who can serve as like a secondary, tertiary playmaker. Drew can absolutely do that. He'd be a much better point of attack defender. He can
and he shoots
rebound.
A ton of threes.
He can still rebound at his age of 36 or whatever it is now. If that was on the table, I would do it just because they need to find a way for the starting lineup to embrace the gritty identity again, because I don't know who's going to do it. It can't just be Colin Gillespie and Jordan Goodwin playing 14 minutes a game off the bench. Those can't be the only guys who hustle on this team. You want to talk about Mark Williams? Let's talk about Mark Williams.
Mark Williams.
Is that going to make you any happier? Or are you going to keep being bummed out?
I don't hate the Mark Williams contract. I think it's fine.
I don't mind it.
Yeah, it's like $12.5 million a year for 3 years, $38 million total.
This happened like 5 days ago, but we didn't record a podcast. I was out of town for the weekend, so thanks
Mark
for your guys' patience.
Mark Williams is like the 25th to 30th best starting center in the NBA last year by most stats. And as we've put it, a poor rim protector, like relatively bad defender by the numbers.
64% allowed at the rim last year.
That's so crazy. That's really bad.
Is bad. That's just a bad number for a starting center.
It's a bad number for a backup center. That's a bad number.
League average is around 62-ish, I think. So, it's a bad number. It's weird with Mark because, like, his mobility looked pretty good, right? Like, at times he looked pretty fluid. He's got good hands, allowing him to catch the ball on offense. They were more than willing to, like, bring him up to touch, not all the time, but sometimes on defense. But with the rim protection, it's just like his timing sucks. And I don't know why, but his timing just sucks. He has one of the tallest standing reaches in the entire NBA. I mean, it's not Wembanyama levels, but it's pretty close. Mm-hmm. And he cannot block shots. He averaged less than one block a game, which is just surprising for a guy with his massive frame.
And he tries, too. I also think his rebounding was not as good as advertised this last season. Maybe it could be better.
He averaged 12 rebounds per 36, 4.7 offensive. Look, I think Mark did his job offensively. He did his job on the glass. He did his job as a high-quality finishing big.
Yes.
When
he ran the floor hard.
When he ran the floor hard, which was most of the time, if they actually passed him the ball, which happened very little and will continue to happen very little given the guys who are going to be playing next to him, but when they actually passed him the ball, he was a great finisher at the rim.
But also,
I think he earned $12 to $13 million a year, whatever it was. Little worried about guaranteed money on the third year given his injury history, but I don't think it's bad value overall.
The Suns hit a lot of threes in transition last year, and one of the reasons they did that was Mark Williams running the floor hard. And now the guys that are going to be shooting those threes in transition, it probably feels a little different when you run the floor hard. You don't get rewarded with the ball, and then they brick an open three compared to, Royce O'Neal or Grayson Allen or, Colin Gillespie's still here, so shout out him. He's going to have to shoot 1,000 threes this coming year. But yeah, that's going to feel a little different. But he did, you're right, offensively, he was not rewarded and he still worked hard. And I really commend him for that because I think it probably can be frustrating as a player to do that. And I think they rewarded him in that way for doing that. Because look, he's not making a ton of money. Obviously, $12 million a year is an insane amount of money for any regular person. But as NBA players are concerned, especially centers who just, a starting center usually just makes $20 million or, $15 to $20 million at the low end. And then the high end gets much more from there. He's making less than that, and that's good because he plays not as well. He probably is because long term in his career like a good backup center or like a mediocre to bad starting center. That's probably who he is.
The thing I still wonder about with
he's still
Mark,
young,
and I
though.
said this about Mark. Yeah, he's still only 24 years old. I'm not going to count on this ever happening. I don't think it's reasonable to put the expectation on him to count on this happening. I still wonder about his viability as a floor spacer. He's shot like 79% from the free throw line 2 years in a row. Every year, there are more and more centers who just are these mediocre bigs, but find a way to extend their careers by 3 to 5 years just by adding a 3-point shot. I just wonder if one of these days, that's there with Mark. The team could certainly use it right now. You just can't count on that sort of thing happening, right? That's not what they're paying him for. That would be a cherry on top. They're paying him to be basically the center version of an innings eater, right? Excuse the baseball reference, Mike, but Mark Williams is the perfect, number 4 starter in your rotation who you pay to just go out there and give you 6 innings and give up 3 runs every time. And if you want to win games when he's on the mound, you're going to have to everyone else is going to have to be better than mediocre, which is why it's concerning because the roster feels quite mediocre at the moment. But you can't fault Mark Williams for that. Mark Williams for $12 million, he's going to go out there, he's going to play hard for 24 minutes a game. You wish he was a better rim protector or a shooter. If he was just one of those two things, it would really improve his value quite a bit. But in the meantime, the Suns continue to be, with him and with all these other guys, kind of just in a holding pattern as an organization, right? That's what it feels like. They're hoping that they can achieve some greater height through development of Malawach and Fleming and Koa Pete and Oso and all these guys. But the veterans that they're paying in the meantime are just okay. Okay guys in the prime of their careers. And it's just going to be a weird team to watch.
Yeah, it is. And it's tough. You ask me right now, I'm not super excited about the coming season, but maybe they can make some trades that make me more excited about that. I just really...
Honestly, right now, I'm more excited for Summer League and watching Koa meet.
That's right.
For a couple of weeks.
I just really want to see a team that's optimized to play around Devin Booker someday. I just want to see that happen. I want to see him play with another playmaker. I want to see him play with a shooting big. Maybe Malawach will be that guy. And I want to see, him find a way to play around a team where they have to be guarded, pretty consistently, to allow him to go one-on-one a little bit more. And I don't see that happening this year at its current state. So, in fact, let me just say this, and then this will be our transition into the free agency preview. Based on what you see of the roster right now, which has one open roster spot, to me, they need more passing, they need more shooting, they need more rebounding, and if you ask me, I still think they need a little bit more size from the forward position. Because as much as they keep calling Miles Bridges a power forward, he is 6'7". We're not talking about a big, huge guy here. That's why his rebounding is just sort of mediocre. Yeah,
both Rasheer and Koa are really big.
I don't anticipate Koa getting a lot of minutes. I'm factoring that into my head here.
I'm anticipating him getting minutes and looking bad in those minutes because he's 19 years old.
Yeah,
so it depends on how much you really want those minutes to look good this season.
It took so much for Rasheer Fleming to get minutes this season.
Yeah.
And part of that was that he made corner threes. I don't think Koa's going to play this season. Sorry to people who are excited to see him play. I just don't think he's going to play. But I think so defense, passing, rebounding, shooting, basketball. They need more basketball players. But if they can find a way to target all of those things, that's what they need to figure out. Now, I'm talking about in trades and I'm talking about in free agency here.
Right.
What do you think are the biggest needs based on what you see as the roster right now?
Spacing is at a premium right now. I'm really worried for the way that the team is going to be able to space the floor, lack thereof, and I'm sure that's top of mind for Jordan Ott as well. I think that's why a lot of the guys on Gambo's list that we're going to bring up in a little bit for free agency are like, not all of them, but a lot of them are kind of quasi Grayson Allen replacements, is what it feels like. The issue is, could you get a guy who like actually spaces the floor, but then, gives you the hustle or gives you the size or, these other things that it also feels like they need more of. Suddenly, if you're asking for a guy who can shoot and play make and rebound and defend, it's like that's a $25 million, $30 million player that the Suns are just not going to have access to with their taxpayer mid-level exception. Taxpayer mid-level exceptions, remind everyone, they've got 2 years, $12 million is the contract. $6 million a year that they get to offer someone.
You can't solve the problems with this team with one player. You just can't.
No.
Unless that player is like, I don't know, Giannis or something. Like, yeah.
Sure. And even, with Giannis, I mean, I think that the Heat went all out to get Giannis, and I think they're a dumpster fire now too. And we'll see how
and you don't have the
shoot.
You need the shooting to surround him.
Yeah, I mean, imagine, I think if you surrounded Giannis with Miles Bridges, Jalen Green, and Dylan Brooks, that might be a 46-win team too, quite frankly. So, they're going to go after a shooter. That's the big thing. It needs to be a shooter. Can that guy coexist and boost the offense without tanking the defense is the big question.
Yeah. And I'm not sure.
Looking for a home that keeps you connected to Silicon Valley without the usual barriers to entry? The Gates in Morgan Hill by City Ventures is a walkable neighborhood near downtown restaurants, outdoor trails, and an easy commute to the Bay Area. It's a small town setting with access to major career hubs. Every home is all electric with buyer-owned solar included. With limited availability, now's the time to take a closer look. Discover your new home at cityventures.com. That's cityventures.com.
And also, sorry, when they go after that shooter, it's going to be a wing. It would be great. It just would be so great if they had a center who shot threes, but or if they had another big who shot threes. Like I did write down names in free agency, bigs who are on the market who do shoot threes. But the Suns just aren't going to go after these guys because they don't have room on the depth chart. It just doesn't make sense after the Mark Williams transaction.
They got 3 centers and Koa Pete, who is offensively a center. So they really have 4 centers on the roster already if you think about the way offense plays. But I mean, obviously a big who shoot threes would open up Koa to play a forward position or Oso to play a forward position. But yeah,
Haywood Highsmith could play some center this year. I could see Jordan not doing that.
He will. They will have moments. This team will have moments where they need a 5-out lineup to catch up in a game. And guys like Highsmith and Royce is gone, but Miles will have to play center at times.
Yeah, Miles for sure.
Yeah. And that's going to be something fans get real mad about, which will be fun. Okay. Gambo says they're going to look for a guard in free agency. I understand that. You look at the roster, you can kind of say they need another, like a shooter, a guard to come in and play. They need shooting. They're so desperate for shooting. The guys he listed, 2 of them have signed. Luke Kennard, Kevin Huerter, Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, DeAnthony Melton, and then the wild card Landry Shamet. Since then, Landry Shamet has signed, and Kevin Huerter has signed. Both returned to the teams that they were on, which were Detroit and New York. So that leaves Luke Kennard, Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, and DeAnthony Melton. Of these guys, $6 million a year. Well, actually, let's start here. 2 of them are clutch clients: Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson. It just feels like that needs to be mentioned. So welcome to the team, Colin Sexton or Jordan Clarkson. I can't wait to find out which one of you are joining. I prefer Colin Sexton, if you were to ask me, over Jordan Clarkson, personally. But of those guys, which ones do you think would sign for about $6 million, first of all?
Well, this is the thing. Colin Sexton's by far the best basketball player here, I think. Would you agree with that? Well, I guess I would understand if you didn't agree with that assessment.
Who else would I say is? Landry Shamet technically, but I guess after last year.
It depends how much you value like DeAnthony Melton's, defensive activity.
The injuries with Melton are a lot.
I know.
He's had a lot. So,
Sexton is consistently available. He can always start in a pinch. He is yet another quasi 20-point per game scorer. He is, by far the best player here. I don't see him signing for $6 million a year. I just don't see why he would do that. But, he can break down guys off the dribble. He can shoot for threes. He can shoot threes. Honestly, hate to say it, but if they sign Colin Sexton, there's a chance that Sexton goes into training camp and is dusting Jalen Green in practice and saying, I'm the starting shooting guard. Something like that could happen. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Sexton is good.
Well, what we know about Jordan Knott is he'd start all 3. Devin Booker would be at power forward because Colin Gillespie has to start too.
Yeah, and Dylan Brooks at center. Yep.
I like Colin Sexton the most. I like his attitude. I've just liked him the whole time he's been in the NBA, but he's like 6'2", just like you said. So that's tough. It's really tough. I think if I were to rank these guys, the theoretical idea of DeAnthony Melton is kind of next. I just don't know how long that player is going to exist. And Luke Kennard, we know what Luke Kennard is. He can launch and he can shoot.
Kennard is so otherworldly as a shooter.
He's the best shooter of this group by like a huge margin. And by the way, I think I would include Landry Shamet in that. Kennard's a better shooter than Shamet. Shamet's just better at everything else. That makes him a better basketball player.
Kennard, in the last 5 seasons combined, where he's played for 4 different teams, and there's a reason for that. But in the last 5 seasons combined, 46% three-point shooter over a 5-year stretch. Absolutely incredible three-point shooter, off movement, from any spot on the floor, top of the key, wing, corner. The issue is defense, and that's why a guy like Grayson Allen, we take him for granted sometimes, and maybe there was, a move where you wanted to move him off the roster, but it was nice that you could play Grayson for 30 minutes and he would be this amazing shooter and you didn't feel like it was tanking your defense in the process. And the same is not true, unfortunately, for Luke Kennard. Now, they do need spacing, and so I'd probably still take Luke Kennard. But that other part of it is what it is.
I think if they signed Luke Kennard, I would feel a small moment of joy. Where I'd be like, oh, cool, they got a movement shooter. They got not just a shooter, they got a guy who can run around a screen and shoot a 3.
Gillespie and Kennard coming together off the bench with Oso. The Gillespie, Kennard, Oso lineup is going to fucking kill defenses.
Yeah, that's
so fun.
It's just like a Kmart version of Draymond, Clay, and Steph.
Yeah, it actually 100% is.
Yeah, so that could be fun. Maybe the Suns will actually run split cuts, which they did occasionally with Oso in the post. So maybe that's something they could do again. But yeah, I think I would rank Clarkson then Kennard. Clarkson like a cultural fit as far as he's not an excellent defender, but he's not a guy who's afraid to be in there, be in the mix, and really get down and fight defensively, which I appreciate that about Sexton. But I would put him first. I would put Kennard second on this list, and then
sorry, you're putting Sexton first, or you said Clarkson?
I'm sorry, I meant Sexton.
Yeah. Okay.
You were like, "What are you talking about?"
I kind of was. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, Sexton first. I'm looking at the list. I'm just mentally. Part of me has been disassociating all day, so I'm trying to ground myself a little bit. I just start take a fork and just stab it into my leg in order to do this podcast at this point. But yeah. Sexton first, Kennard second, Melton third on that list, and then you have Jordan Clarkson last. Clarkson's just not he's not really good anymore. Which means maybe he's destined to be on the Suns because we're full of those players.
How old is Sexton? Like 27, 28?
Yeah, something around there, yeah.
I mean, Clarkson is just what Sexton will be in 6 years. He's pretty old at this point, and I don't know if how much of a defensive buy-in you can get from a guy like him.
And also, $6 million to him would feel bad. A minimum for Clarkson's fine, but $6 million to Clarkson would be an overpay.
Yeah, he's a guy who played a very limited role with the Knicks. Got cut out of the championship rotation at a certain point.
Technically, he played minutes in the NBA Finals when they needed him. In foul trouble, but still.
No issue with him for that. It happens to guys when you can't be in the top 7 or 8 of a team's rotation. But he's by far the fourth option that I would have. D'Anthony Melton.
If Clarkson was on the Suns, he just wouldn't play, I think, mostly. And Kennard would play. Sexton would play. Clarkson, I think the guys would play above him.
Why would you play? If you signed Colin Sexton, I think you legitimately have a guy who can create with the ball in his hands on the right night in a way that other guys can't on the team, honestly. Like, Sexton's pretty efficient with the ball. Whereas if you have Jordan Clarkson, why would you ever play Jordan Clarkson when you could just give Jalen Green 10 more minutes, right? Why would I play Jalen Green 30 minutes and Jordan Clarkson 10 when I could just... Jalen Green's young. I could just play him 40 minutes and it's the same player, maybe better, So I think there's that issue of redundancy a little bit with those two guys. But that's just how I feel about it. D'Anthony Melton, we didn't really talk about D'Anthony Melton, but like at least with Melton, he's really nailing the defensive identity points.
Yeah, he would be fun. He would be fun to watch. Yeah,
competing for the Timeline Dan Marley Hustle Player of the Year, the Week of the Year.
I think we would like him a lot. Yeah,
and I think there the challenge would just be, okay, you've got him, you've got Goodwin, you've got Gillespie, and they're all really fun to watch.
Dunn.
Yeah, but can you play like those are 3 similarly sized guards?
These are all point of attack defenders because that's what Melton is. Melton can play a little bigger. And Dunn can too, but really he can't. Dunn kind of needs to be more of a guard defender to be great. But yeah, I mean, this is a good list. Did you look at any other guys? Do you want to talk about other clutch clients?
Who else are clutch clients? I didn't look at that
Tim
list.
Hardaway Jr.
No.
I think he'll probably. I think that's actually more of a. I like Tim Hardaway Jr. I think it's kind of a similar Kevin Huerter type of signing. I don't think he's that much worse.
Okay, I'll look at his numbers again. You might be right. I didn't want Kevin Huerter. Kevin Huerter's just not a good shooter. Kevin Huerter, big benefit of white privilege. Like, in the sense that, people look at you and they look at your skin color and they just think you're Grayson Allen or Peyton Pritchard or Colin Gillespie. Kevin Huerter is not a good three-point shooter. If Kevin Huerter, I don't have to keep going with this. I mean, if Kevin Huerter were not white, he would be looked at very differently. So I didn't mind that the Suns didn't sign Kevin Huerter. That's all I'll say.
I'll say, yeah, I don't disagree with that entirely. Although I wouldn't have hated it as much as it sounds like you would have. I think he's
every white person listening to this podcast, which is the vast majority of you, has had the experience of playing pickup and having theoretical gravity, right? Theoretical spacing. There's the idea that you might be a shooter until you throw up your first brick. And then they realize, oh, you're not actually a shooter.
There's a lot of pressure in making your first shot in a
and that's
game
Kevin,
when you're playing with
you
guys you've never played with before.
If you miss it, you'll never get the ball again. But they'll at least throw it to you in the corner once because they're thinking you might make that. But if you're Kevin Huerter, you won't.
I think Tim Hardaway Jr. would be a perfectly fine signing. I don't know that what he'll make. Like, it's really hard to judge these guys. Like, he has somewhat of a career behind him, so maybe he'll get a little boost from that and make more than $6 million. I kind of think he doesn't deserve it. Maybe he'll be on a minimum too. Like, at a certain point, these guys just become minimum guys until the end of their career, and that could be this year for Tim Hardaway Jr. But he's a capable shooter. He does some dribbling, by the way, and he's willing to shoot off movement threes, which I appreciate.
Tim Hardaway Jr. was 3rd in sixth man voting this year. I had no idea.
So they definitely can't afford him.
I think they can because he's still not he's just scoring himself. He's not creating for anyone else. I just had no idea that he got that many points. Now, granted, it was Keldon Johnson with 400 points, Jaime Jaquez with 330, and then Hardaway Jr. in a distant third with 45 points in the vote. But still, I had no idea that he was top 5. That's impressive.
Some guys just sorted by points per game and voted for guys based on that, probably.
He was above Naz Reid. He was above AJ Mitchell.
I much
You know,
prefer
those
Naz
are
Reid. We're going to talk about the Naz Reid trade in a second. I do want to end the podcast with that. Can I just list a couple of clutch clients at you real quick?
Yeah, I want to hear them.
Not free agents. Just going to throw
just
names
clients.
out there.
Okay.
Darius Garland, DeJounte Murray, Fred VanVleet. Just saying those names. How do you feel about any of those guys?
I like Darius Garland. The Western Conference.
How much do you like Darius Garland?
How much is he making? Like $50 million a year or something stupid?
Do you like Darius Garland enough to attach 2 picks?
No, I don't like Darius Garland that much.
That's the question. Because they did they drafted Keaton Wagler, the Clippers. So they drafted potentially their point guard of the future. And I just there's a couple agents in the NBA that don't like when that happens.
Wait, are you saying so? Let's say theoretical trade is Jalen Green, first round picks in 27 and 29 for Darius Garland.
27 and 29, and maybe it's some other salary along with that, right? We don't have the easy salaries anymore. Mark Williams.
And so now the starting 5 is Darius Garland, Devin Booker, Dylan Brooks, Miles Bridges, Mark Williams.
Yeah.
Don't hate that.
I don't either. DeJounte Murray, that can be done straight. I think that's like a straight up Jalen Green, DeJounte Murray trade, no assets, if you do that. And I would do that in a heartbeat, personally. I think it makes sense for both teams, actually.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think it makes sense for both teams right
do
now. I think the Suns would get better. I think their defense would get better. They'd have a better point of attack defender, assuming he gets back to what he was capable of doing before. Their 3-point shooting does not get better in this case, but Jalen Green did not have a great season from the 3-point line last year. I think is a more capable 3-point shooter than he shot last year, but that's still theoretical on the Suns until we see it on the Suns. Fred VanVleet tore his ACL before last season, was out the entire season. He makes $25 million. Now, I don't think the Suns are going to trade Jalen Green back to the Houston Rockets, or I don't think the Rockets would do that, but maybe they would. I don't know. Just thought, looking at clients, I just thought that was kind of interesting to see Fred VanVleet there. Like, would you like Fred VanVleet on the Suns? Obviously, he's coming off the ACL tear, so have no idea how good he's going to be. But as a theoretical fit on this team, he can play some defense when he's healthy. He's a guy who launches from 3. He's kind of, as we've talked about, like good, like better Colin Gillespie.
He was. Well, that's the thing, is he was better Colin Gillespie for a solid 3 or 4 years before the ACL. It would be really risky now. Now, granted, VanVleet never really relied on any sort of burst to get to the rim. He was a guy who just launches threes because that's been his offensive game. But now I would really worry about him just being at the level of another Colin Gillespie, which probably isn't good enough. I'm intrigued by Darius Garland for sure, and to some extent DeJounte Murray. So thank you for bringing those names up, I guess.
I got another one.
I still don't get the clutch thing, but okay.
Anthony Davis?
No.
Jalen Green and Miles Bridges. He makes $58 million this year, $62 million next year.
Doesn't he want to go to the Warriors? What's going on?
Okay, yeah, maybe, but I'm just.
What are we doing?
This is not a question about what's
Anthony
going Davis
on in the Pacific Division. What is happening in the Pacific Division of the
That's
NBA?
The rule now. Would you trade them? Is the question. Would you trade Jalen Green and Miles Bridges for Anthony Davis?
No, because I think there's a real chance that Anthony Davis plays 20 games this season. And say what you will about Jalen Green and Miles Bridges.
Are you sure the Suns still wouldn't be better?
I think
you actually make minutes for the good defenders to play on the team in that case.
I still think you need guys who put the ball in the hoop at least a little bit. I wish they weren't going to get 35 minutes a game, but I would not make the Anthony Davis trade. I would say that.
I would.
Okay.
I would do it. I wouldn't attach any assets in order to do it, which means
I totally wish that they had made the Zion trade that I was hoping for. How cool would that have been? But yeah. Well, but yeah, I'm sure the Pelicans weren't.
Draymond Green, LeBron James are also clutch clients.
The Pelicans probably weren't jumping for joy at the idea of Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, and that first round pick. Although who knows? Are they going to get anything better than that for Zion when they do eventually trade him?
No idea. It's a good.
I think that would have been a compelling offer on our part.
The Ja Morant being traded for 0 picks, I think, is not. It's not nothing. I think it shows the value of distressed assets in that way, which is why it makes no sense that the Suns included an unprotected pick for Miles Bridges. It makes no sense. Ja Morant's better.
I am putting Brian Gregory on make a trade with another team watch.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they did this with Koa Pete, technically, right? Who did we even trade? Whose pick was that?
It was I don't remember.
Fuck, I don't even remember who had the 30th pick there. But make a trade with a team that's not the Charlotte Hornets at this point. That's not just on draft night. Prove to us that you have other numbers saved in your phone.
Long term for the Suns. We haven't even talked about this. Just to wrap up the Miles Bridges stuff, and then I just want to quickly run through a couple moves that were made in the NBA and just hear what you think about them, because you and I actually haven't talked about some of them. Long term for Miles Bridges, if your goal for this team was collect salaries to try to make a star trade later, you do have Jalen Green at 30-something million, and then Miles Bridges combined they make $59 million next year combined. So if you're saying, or this coming season, I should say, if you're saying we got these two guys, now we can attach picks to them and we could try to trade them for a star. Not a lot of stars who make $59 million or more. There's like 4 guys who make more than that. Devin Booker's probably one of them at this point. So maybe you can find something for them. And to me, if that's your goal, that's what you're doing, you have a goal to trade them later on, then cool. That's actually a good idea. Just don't see a lot of ways for that to work. But that's one of the only ways that you could make this work. But they included a 2033 unprotected pick because they appear to want to re-sign and extend Miles Bridges. And by the way, if they do that before they play a game, that's disastrous to me. You have to see this first.
Yeah, you have to see it work.
You have to see it work. And if it works, you can justify it from a basketball perspective. If you do it before that because you want to justify sending that pick out because you're going to get a guy for multiple years, that's a disaster to me. You cannot do that.
Just on the flexibility angle, Jalen Green plus Miles Bridges, to your point, $59 million doesn't really make any sense. However, if they sent out Miles Bridges and Dylan Brooks for some better wing, that's $45-ish million. If they sent out Jalen Green and Mark Williams, who's now signed to an extension, for some star player, that's $50 million. Those are workable versions of deals that maybe get you access to other star players, right?
Yes,
when you include the picks.
I think that makes sense from that perspective as well. And part of what makes that make sense to me, by the way, is that Miles Bridges is an expiring contract. So if you're trading to another team, they understand, we get off of this money at the end of this year. But if you extend him, that doesn't become part of his value anymore, right? So you have to maintain the value of owning a tradable, potentially tradable, mid-salary contract until the end of the season. Do not extend him. Find a way to at least turn that into some sort of value contract on the trade market, assuming you're willing to trade picks, which, by the way, they definitely are. So please do not extend him. Please at least leave the option open to trade him this season until the trade deadline. And if he plays well enough to earn a contract next year, I don't think you're going to have a ton of competing offers for him. I would just do it. Just wait and decide later.
Mark, it's a shame that Mark can't be traded until December since he just re-signed anyway. But actually, is that true? No, because he's not a newly signed free agent,
it's
so
true. December's correct.
Even though he's a returning player, I actually don't remember what the CBA
The returning player is January 15th if they sign over a certain amount over their original salary. And he doesn't meet that benchmark from what I remember.
Okay, but so it's still December. You can't trade Mark Williams, right?
Yes, correct.
That makes sense, but is unfortunate. Don't you think Jalen Green and Mark Williams for Sabonis would be an interesting swap?
It is.
I feel like the Kings might bite for that.
That's not, it's kind of interesting. And then you just give Colin Gillespie the starting spot and Jamari Bouye becomes a backup point guard.
Yeah, or you sign
especially if
Melton.
you have Colin Sexton too, because he's kind of
if you sign Sexton, then Sexton has a great role to fill into.
Yeah.
Anyway, alas, not happening.
LaMelo Ball.
Oh yeah, that guy exists.
Traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Naz Reid. We'll just say that's the trade. There's more details along with the trade. Do you think the Minnesota Timberwolves improved?
No. When you also factor in Julius Randle leaving, who is also a source of creation for them, and Naz Reid to some extent also a source of creation, but not having either of those guys and then bringing in LaMelo. Yeah, I don't think I think honestly, I think there's a strong chance that the Wolves are just worse.
I think they might be better in the regular season.
I in some way applaud them making a swing. But I think if it were my team, similar to how, like from a neutral perspective, I just think it's cool when teams go for swings. When it's my team that I have to talk about, they make me very nervous. And so I understand that there's a difference there in kind of how you talk about things and how you cover things.
I think it's interesting. There's, I think that they have been really well run, the Minnesota Timberwolves. And even some of the trades that you think that's a bad trade end up being kind of good. Now, of course, they just gave away Julius Randle for nothing, and Cat won a championship, so you can argue about the merits of that trade. But they did it for money reasons as well as everything else. And when it's a money reason, general managers can't fully be blamed for that. That's an ownership decision. And when it comes to making a trade for money reasons, they did pretty well. They made the conference finals after that trade as well. But I think it's interesting for them, the team that kind of was attempting to build a team to go against Jokic, now trying to build a team to go against Wemby. And the concept of that is more three-point shooting. Stretch the floor out as far as possible. Find ways to make that man cover as much space as possible to give room for other guys. Just from a conceptual standpoint, from a general manager who I believe, forget his name now, he used to be the Nuggets general manager actually. Just from a conceptual standpoint, I find it to be kind of interesting. Just the idea of moving in that direction and sort of making a play. And maybe they'll make other moves to make the team better. I don't think they're better right now in the playoffs. I think LaMelo Ball is a playoff liability and will probably remain a playoff liability for a while unless he dramatically changes as a player. But I do think they're going to be really fun and good in the regular season, and that is kind of interesting. They'll probably lose a lot of close games too.
I do think spacing is definitely valuable and is interesting and all that. The thing though is like, if you're getting to a point where a guy's just taking, as has been the case in LaMelo's career, and Trae Young too, who just signed a wild contract. If you're taking 12 threes a game at 33%, at what point does a defense just call your bluff? Like, yeah, okay, cool. You're taking 32-foot threes. You're taking 28-foot threes. This isn't higher quality offense than if you actually drove the ball and created a shot.
That would be really interesting to see, because nobody has done that with Devin Booker yet either. You know what I mean? Just left him open to the 3-point line and just let him shoot. But the thing about LaMelo is sometimes he just hits 5 in a row.
Yeah, he does.
And you just never know as a defense if this is going to be one of those times. So, like, defenses were going to react to that because that sometimes he does that. And the fifth one is crazier than the first one. Each one is progressively more insane. As a team in the Western Conference, I don't think it's changed the overall hierarchy of the Western Conference. There are 2 teams floating above everyone else, and then the next team has Jokic on it. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Minnesota is in one of the teams below that. And like, depending on what the Lakers do, I think the Lakers could even be better than them as a playoff team next year. But we'll see. I think that was kind of an interesting trade, and I'm looking forward to watching them. I don't think they're better as a contender. I don't think they're better, but I'm looking forward to watching them. I think they could actually be a really fun League Pass team next year. The Charlotte Hornets giving up LaMelo Ball for that trade says a lot about how they view LaMelo Ball, who's played very little in the last few seasons, because that's the biggest problem with this trade. He never plays. He had one season where he played a lot, and they immediately traded him. That means they don't think he could stay healthy. And, there's a risk there because there's already rumors of quote-unquote vultures swirling around Anthony Edwards, trying to see if he's going to be unhappy there, and then teams are going to try to pull him away from there. So this is their swing to try to make it work, and if it doesn't, it's going to be the move that results in him leaving. That's how the NBA works.
Since we're talking about both LaMelo and Bridges and Mark Williams on this episode, I just had to pull it up right now on Data Baller. These guys played 2 seasons together. Okay. So there actually is a sample size of all of them playing together. And I just wanted to quote you the numbers. When LaMelo and Mark Williams and Miles Bridges shared the court over, this was 2 and 3 years ago, over 431 minutes, what do you think the net rating was?
LaMelo, Miles Bridges, and who?
Mark Williams. All on the court together. 431 minutes.
I'm going to say -9.
No. It was a plus 2.2.
Oh, good for them.
With all three of them, LaMelo and Bridges and Mark Williams was a plus 2.2.
Oh, man. That would drive me insane as if I was a Hornets fan, man. I would just think about that constantly.
There is a 465-minute sample size where Mark Williams and Miles Bridges played together without LaMelo Ball. How do you think that lineup did?
I'm going to guess really bad.
That lineup was a -12.
Yeah, because the thing is, I think both teams got worse.
Those are the two players that the Suns have on their roster.
Yeah,
so
that's tough.
We'll try our best. It's a 106 offensive rating for that pairing without LaMelo Ball. Now, of course, if you plug in Devin Booker for LaMelo Ball, the idea is it can look more like the LaMelo minutes did.
It's true, yeah. In a completely different way, but yeah.
That's the hope. It's a funky fit for a lot of reasons.
Weird week to be a Suns fan. Look, we're going to cover the team as we always do, and we're going to focus mostly on basketball. We started this podcast so we could just talk about basketball. That was the main goal, and I hope we get back to there and just talk about that a lot this coming season. No matter what happens, we're going to be here to cover it. If you're the type of fan that's like, I don't want to watch, we'll do it for you. We'll watch the games. You can listen to the podcast. We'll update you on the team as it goes, and we'll do our best to cover it for the rest of the season. And the offseason, I think there's probably more coming. Like, I would be surprised if they didn't look to make another trade because this roster, to me, is still unbalanced. It was unbalanced before the Grayson and Royce trade, but losing that amount of shooting is insane.
I'm actually surprised you feel that way. For me, it's like 90% chance I feel like they sign a shooter in the next couple of days. We come back on to do a pod about it, and then
I cannot fathom that because
I'm not saying it's the right thing
to
do, but
I
I don't feel like there's another trade coming in my bones.
There's no passing on this team.
Yep.
Okay. We'll be back. We're going to do a Patreon episode this week. Who knows what it'll be about. And then, of course, we're going to cover free agency as it comes. The Suns will probably they're not going to be one of the big movers in the first few minutes of free agency, but we'll get to it once it comes, and we'll cover it on this podcast. If you want to join and listen to our Patreon podcast and join our Discord, it's patreon.com/thetimeline. Anything else before we go, Sam?
I don't think so. Should be a fun couple days for free agency. Let's go out and get Luke Kennard.
All right.
Colin Sexton.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Back soon.
Looking for a home that keeps you connected to Silicon Valley without the usual barriers to entry? The Gates in Morgan Hill by City Ventures is a walkable neighborhood near downtown restaurants, outdoor trails, and an easy commute to the Bay Area. It's a small town setting with access to major career hubs. Every home is all electric with buyer-owned solar included. With limited availability, now's the time to take a closer look. Discover your new home at cityventures.com. That's cityventures.com.